Are YouTube spiritual teachers grifting, or do they mean well? So recently someone left a really good question in a comment in one of my videos. Do you think these people have good intentions but don't know what they're saying is hurting people, or do you think it's mostly scams to get money and they are very aware of what they're doing? Let's talk about this. So with this question and with James Jarney's second part of his Law of Attraction series going out, I thought this is the perfect conversation to be having at the moment. Hey everyone, if you're new here, I'm Andy Fellows and I make videos on cult skepticism and making sense of life after New Age spirituality. If you're interested in a more grounded and skeptical approach to New Age spirituality, then why not subscribe to the channel and hit the bell? I think for anyone who's been like a fervent follower of a YouTube spiritual teacher or any kind of a spiritual teacher, this is a question that crops up relatively often. I think especially when you cross over into like cult leader territory, that's a question that hangs around a lot of times for a lot of people. Is this person, did they really have my best intentions at heart, but were they just wrong or incompetent or overconfident, or did they really just want money or adoration or free labor or whatever this is? When it comes to YouTube spiritual teachers, I think you have to kind of just go with the available evidence. You know, what are the kind of things they're talking about? How are they approaching the kind of issues they're talking about? Are they trying to sell you stuff off the back of what they're doing? And, you know, what kind of image are they putting out on their channel? I think, you know, with someone like Ralph Smart, you go onto his channel and you very much get the impression that, you know, this is someone who wants to sell you something. In his banner, he's got the shirts he wants you to buy, or the merch he wants you to buy. He wants you to buy his book. And so clearly money is something that Ralph Smart's interested in, and that's not a criticism. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to make money, although I would personally say, in terms of what Ralph Smart's doing, I feel that the way that he's making money, the information that he's sharing, the content that he's sharing is not the best way to be making money, because it can lead people to erroneous conclusions, because it is, you know, it's conspiracy theories. A lot of the stuff that he's sharing is either flat out incorrect, which I've looked at before in a video where I fact checked him for a week, or as you also see in that video, there's some truth there, as is always the case with conspiracy theories. There's like a grain of truth and then it sort of goes off in its own direction. So with someone like Ralph Smart, when you're looking at what he's doing, clearly he's interested in money. Whether he believes what he's saying or not, I don't know, but it's certainly the case from, you know, where I'm sitting, that a lot of what he's sharing is nonsense. Also with Ralph Smart, I think something that speaks to his intentions potentially is that it seems like he may be trying to use NLP in his videos. Now, as far as NLP goes, is basically bunk from what I've seen. You know, I don't believe there's any real scientific evidence to support the efficacy of NLP. I know Dr. Grande did a good video on that one, if you want a sort of bit more information on that. With NLP for Ralph Smart, one of the things that stands out for me is he kind of leaves like a pause for like 3 seconds quite often. And that, for me, if you count the seconds, it tends to be 3 seconds, and that tends to be spread out throughout his videos, and it tends to be around him emphasizing what he's saying. You'll notice as well, he uses the number 3 relatively often in other places around his channel. That kind of reinforces for me that potential for him potentially trying to use NLP to have an influence or an effect on his audience. Now, whether or not NLP works, whether or not that's real or actually, you know, can cause somebody to reprogram their mind in some way, I think that speaks to Ralph Smart's intentions potentially, if that is in fact what he's doing. And I don't know if that's what he's doing, but from my point of view, it seems like that's a distinct possibility. With someone like Teal Swan, you know, in the past she's made no secret about running a for-profit business. To an extent, I would say that someone's intention to earn money, if they're keeping that a secret, then that goes against them in terms of their integrity, I would say, and it sort of goes against their credibility. But if they're upfront about that, then that could go towards their credibility. But again, it's what they're doing to earn that money. And I think if you're spreading misinformation on the internet, if you're saying things that you maybe aren't fully trained and qualified to actually be sharing, then that's, I would say, is when you get into a little bit of an iffy territory there. And at the moment, it seems like Teal's kind of pivoting towards like bro science and like pickup artistry a little bit from what she's saying on her channel. Like some of the stuff she's talking about seems to be going in that direction. So, you know, that is not notoriously the most upstanding genre of or field or industry or whatever the word is for that. Make of that what you will. With JP Sears, you've got a kind of classic thing with someone that's into the sort of natural natural healthy kind of stuff, he's selling supplements off the back of what he's doing. Now, supplements are a bit of a kind of contested industry at the moment, and they seem to be very popular among people who are spreading other misinformation. So again, make of that what you will. As far as someone's intentions go, though, it is really hard to tell what someone's intentions are. I think with the examples I gave there, you can see there's some marks for them having good intentions, but also some marks against them having good intentions. I think with someone like JP Sears as well, he's someone who does strike me as like a genuine believer in some of the stuff that he's saying. I don't know whether he believes all of it. I'm not inside his head, but he does strike me as someone who does seem to believe what he's saying. Like he seems to be genuinely red-pilled, and I did do a video on that recently, so if you missed that, by the way, check that one out. I'll put it in a card up here for you. To echo James Jarney's comment on New Age spirituality kind of being the perfect grift, I feel like, he's right about that, especially when you consider the fact that this is a field full of unfalsifiable claims and this sort of disparaging of a lot of societal institutions, which opens the door for, positioning yourself as an authority, as a leader on something that's better or more knowledgeable than these, social institutions that we've got, than, universities and education and science in general oftentimes. And then, of course, also you've got like the conspiratorial approach to things. The conspiracy theories in New Age spirituality are part and parcel, really. So all of that kind of stuff, in my mind, sets these things up for being grift worthy. If you're a grifter and you're looking for your next target, New Age spirituality is ideal because of those things and many other things, because these are typically genuine people who are looking for answers, but in many cases are struggling for one or more reasons, mental health or just going through a difficult period in their life, and they're looking to this movement, they're looking to this spirituality to answer these kind of questions for them. It totally makes sense that a grifter is going to come in and they're going to take advantage of people. And again, it totally makes sense that if you're someone who's involved in New Age spirituality, if you're someone that's keen on New Age spirituality, then you might get sucked up into the vacuum of a grifter who's just looking for their next target. And of course, the examples I'm giving in this video, Ralph Smart, Teal Swan, JP Sears, these aren't people that I feel are, with full bad intentions. Maybe there's, a bit of ambiguity there on some points, especially because there's obviously always going to be a conflict of interest when it comes to money and sharing information that's not verifiable and that kind of stuff, of course. And that does open the door for people who don't really care too much about what the truth is because they think they know they're right and, all that kind of stuff. But I do think a lot of times, they do things that perhaps betray their intentions in some way. Often how these people respond to criticisms says a lot about what they think and what they feel. And it doesn't always look so good for them. I remember when Netflix's Cults Explained episode came out.
You are accepting yourself 100% for who you are. If people don't like it, too bad, they can hit the road.
And Ralph wasn't happy. He made a whole video about society being a cult, pretty much, and about how he was going to sue Netflix.
Everything in this matrix is a cult. When you get outside of the matrix, you're no longer in the cult.
It doesn't look great, And when people deal with criticisms in a sort of disingenuous way, or they try to explain away certain things that they're being criticized for in one way or another, then again, that kind of betrays, if nothing else, a cognitive dissonance, but it's possible that also reveals something about their intentions. And also, I think you can be defensive and you can have cognitive dissonance and you can struggle with criticism and people not liking what you do without being a grifter. I think that's something that anyone who puts themselves into something, whether they are doing that for the best intentions or not, is going to struggle with whenever people do criticize. I think, we are all human.
I am non-physical energy that is projected forth into an Arcturian body.
Naturally, the other side of that is that just because they believe what they're saying or just because they are doing it with the best of intentions doesn't mean that what they're saying and doing is useful. It doesn't mean that it's going to have a positive impact on people. And it doesn't mean that it's going to look good that what they're doing is spreading misinformation and saying things that are unverifiable and potentially leading people down a dark path. and then well, their intentions were good, you know, it doesn't matter at that point in a way, because if you're leading someone down a dark path, if you're doing things in a way that is causing people to, you know, become more paranoid, you know, conspiracy theories do tend to lead people towards more paranoia, or perhaps increasing existing paranoia, you know. And when it comes to talking about mental health issues, when you're not someone who is qualified and trained to speak about those kind of things, you don't know what you don't know, and there's always the potential that you're going to lead people down a dark path in that way, especially when you get kind of too confident about what you're saying as well. And, you know, that makes me think of someone like Christina Lopez, who I sort of spoke about a little bit in last week's video when I was talking about the ascension symptoms. You know, she may well have good intentions, and from that video alone, and that is really the only video I've really seen from her, she does seem to think that what she's sharing is good and useful and worthwhile. She does seem to be someone who thinks that what she's saying is worth saying, at the very least, and it doesn't seem that she's doing it with the intention, you know, of just sort of, you know, that slimy vibe you get from like pickup artists and stuff like that, where they're sharing things, and there's clearly another motivation in that, not just to share the information and to get people to basically act out misogyny, but like there's that whole sort of like, and today I'm going to tell you the 5 things that you need to know, and then you're going to click through here and you're going to sign up for this thing for free, and then I'm going to upsell off the back of that, and all that kind of stuff that you get, that sort of slimy vibe, that doesn't seem to come across with actually any of the people that I've shared in this as examples in this video, from my point of view. I mean, you may disagree, and if you do, please share your thoughts in the comments on that. And I think also it's worth saying that when we're talking about charismatic people and their capacity to influence others, sometimes it doesn't matter what their intentions are, because the impacts really are so negative that it doesn't matter, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intention. And actually, talking about charisma, there's a definition of charisma that I really like, which actually the Cult Vault podcast put up on their Instagram. Charismatic, exercising a compelling charm which inspires devotion in others. And I think that's a really, really good definition of this. When you take that into consideration, inspiring devotion in other people really does lead you in a lot of potentially damaging directions when we're talking about people who are sharing conspiracy theories, who are sharing medical misinformation, who are sharing information on mental health issues that, you know, doesn't stand up and isn't evidence-based. Of course, that can go in a really dark direction. Also, while we're talking about the Cult Vault podcast, I did speak to Casey, the host of the Cult Vault podcast, recently, and tell my story a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I'm talking about in this video, actually. That episode's going to be out in a few months, I think, over on that podcast. An episode I actually really enjoyed on that was where Casey talked to Janja Lalich, who is sort of one of the big names in cult research and this whole thing that we're talking about when we talk about cults and influence and charisma, really. So check that one out if you're interested in that. Also, if you're enjoying this video, by the way, please hit the like button as we're going through it. I think when it comes down to it, the best thing that we can do really is sort of equip ourselves with skepticism and critical thinking and try to understand how undue influence works, because whether or not someone's intentions are good, whether or not someone has golden intentions, you know, they can still have a negative impact on you. They can still be sharing information and making money from that information and benefiting from sharing information that's ultimately having a negative impact on you. So I think it is important to have that sort of skepticism and critical thinking locked in and be practicing that, because it is a skill and it is something that, you know, we're not all born with. It's something that you do have to practice throughout your life. And as far as my opinion goes, now that we've got some of that sort of analysis of all of this out of the way, I think when it comes to YouTube spiritual teachers, in some cases, we are looking at people who are interested in the benefits of having, you know, an audience and earning money from that, be that the money itself or the adoration or whatever it is that comes from it. But in other cases, we are dealing with people who are perhaps well-intentioned and are just incompetent. And I think in a lot of cases, unfortunately, we're looking at people who are interested in the adoration, are interested in the money, but also we're looking at a blistering incompetence as well. Whenever I release a video like this on a Thursday, I also release an audio companion to this over on my Patreon, where I'd sort of share a little bit more on the topic that we're talking about in the video, but I'd say things that maybe I can't always say on my YouTube channel, be it because of time constraints or because YouTube's going to shit all over me for saying that kind of a thing on the channel. Also, at the end of every month, I do a Patreon exclusive live stream where I connect with patrons in the chat and just sort of share a bit of behind the scenes stuff from the videos videos from that month and respond to anything anyone wants me to talk about and share book recommendations and that kind of thing. So if either of those things sounds like something you're interested in, then check out the Patreon in the link in the description below. See which tier is right for you and become a patron. I'm Andy Fellows. I'm here pretty much every Thursday. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and please be kind and ask good questions, and I'll see you in the next one.